I would like Stan to come before us and present the commissioner's side of the land sale. So we'll open with him and then we'll have our regular opening after the public. All right, Corey. Stan? Dave's talking. You have to remember this is a public meeting.
Thank you. This is a joint session of council and commissioners, and part of the reason is because the letter of intent, I think you might have had a copy of this. I'll read through this real quick. Council, this was kind of what the question was asked of us. Why is this come up? So I'll just read through this real quick. Continue to the Adams County Board of Commissioners to consider selling the farm ground and kind of opportunities around the Golden Meadows home. This involves approximately 140 acres more or less. The farm was originally entitled to Adams County Infirmary. I have to assume that the purpose of this farm was to be a working farm so that the residents of the county could help support themselves and to give them purpose and livelihood. This is no longer the case. I do have to thank Julie Marie because in the research that she's done on the deed and some of the original letters, it's obvious that she did a very thorough research into this and background, so I appreciate that very much. We as the commissioners do not have the intention to develop this property for government use and do not see a practical need for doing so in the foreseeable future. We are evaluating the current projected land value of this acreage along with projections for the appreciated land value. So that's something that how this is what holding attention to as far as, what would be typical for appreciation on land values, which obviously we've seen a huge appreciation in the last 10 or 20 years. So what we just need to do is pull out our crystal ball and see what the next 10 years hold. So that's what I was trying to keep, because he's got the crystal ball.
Yeah.
We're also evaluating the current projected return on this land from cataract. That's something that we pretty much can project fairly accurately. We are evaluating the current projected return on the proceeds on the money from the sale of the farm. So that's something that we're looking at too, from an investment and return standpoint on investing that money, which has done a very good job of seeking out wise investments from his within the parameters of what government is able to invest in. So, as far as I know, we're not buying Bitcoin. No, we're evaluating the current projected return on proceeds from money. The commissioners are currently anticipating the current and future needs of providing proper judicial services to the residents of Adams County that we are required to provide. Among these are facilities for circuit court, superior court, probation, and community corrections. We currently have a community corrections that's renting a facility 2 miles from town, which is not efficient and not convenient. So we're looking at that. We currently have a probation department that sits on the 2nd floor of the Superior Court building, which is not easily accessible and is not good for security, as the sheriff has pointed out to us too. Superior Court, same way, not efficient, not effective for security either. And then Circuit Court also we will be evaluating that. It's our feeling that all these facilities will need updated, replaced, or consolidated to continue to operate safely and efficiently. All of this is a discussion. Very simply, all of this will require capital. We feel the proceeds of the sale from approximately 140 acres of farm ground to be applied toward these projects to help defer additional bond issues. We encourage public comment on this matter. So I appreciate the time. So I guess at this time, if there's any comment from council, particularly from the public, that we all could address this and maybe open for discussion, open for answering questions, whatever everyone's thoughts. Potential investment return on the land.
Maybe the details, basically.
So this is a good time for open discussion and comments, additions. I know we did have a joint session a couple months ago and with council and commissioners, and there was about 2 hours worth of discussion and everybody had an opportunity to speak to the issue then. So this is also a very good opportunity to speak to the issue.
I tend to be in favor of saying it, but to me, I do want to separate the spending side of it. To me, I just think this is a better investment that we can get. I think that the treasurer can get a better investment with that money when it's liquid than in real estate form. So to me, that's the motivating factor. But, I understand the potential need down the road for some of these other spending things, and I don't know, we'll get there when we do. I just don't want it to look like this is the first step towards those, because to me, that's a whole different thing. But I do like the idea of being able to get a better return with that investment when it's liquid.
Because I'm still in the opinion, until there's a plan in place for, consolidation, or there's a replacement, a course duration or community corrections. Until there's a definite plan that still holds as a savings account, specifically could be served all in one for a consolidation of all of it. I just hate to see it piecemeal together, some here and some there, and there's no real, I guess, complete project. I'd like to see that plan incorporated, so we are looking at this, and this is our intent, and then suddenly goes directly to that. And no offense, it seems like a wish list or a list, but well, we could do it here, a little bit, some on all four.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, we don't want to just piecemeal things together without a good plan. So that's a very good point. So I think, this is a little bit of preparation, whatever. This is definitely not instituting a specific plan. You're correct. So that will be a process in itself.
Stan, or maybe Tony, is there, we really want to decide, is there a place we could put this money? When we just go into the general fund and kind of get lost?
It has to, by statute, go to the general fund.
Can I then transfer from there after that?
You go through the normal appropriation procedures to have that money moved elsewhere or spent on something else, yes, but initially it has to go into the general fund.
If you put it in rainy day, that could not be touched unless there's an ordinance or resolution by the council to touch it and take it out. So if we're going to county general and rainy day, then council would have to pass an ordinance to get that out of there for certain use.
And Ed, would that being in rainy day, would that limit your ability to invest it in any way?
No.
That would be my biggest concern, that we just don't fritter the money away. This is the process by which it's protected. Number one, you just can't access it because it's there. Take your vote of Congress, so to speak, to access it, and we don't want to just waste it.
And my speculation is, I guess, as good as anybody else's, that the value of land will go up or down, that, you know, whatever we choose to invest it in, if we figure that out, it could be up or down too. I just think that it stays there in 5 years, if we decide to build a new probation fund, we can sell it at that point and have all the funds go directly there. Versus selling it, and like I said before, 5 years from now, this whole board and all the commissioners could be different plan in place in a different direction. Yeah, I give it all accountability that it's going to be here with this.
I have to say one other thing, and it's a little bit of a sidetrack here, but when initially I sat on council years ago, the commissioners were looking at what to do with Superior Court. And so that was a whole process of evaluation, options to a final decision. And at that point, obviously, we transitioned from Superior Court to building a new jail. And at that time, through the whole process, the commissioners and council worked hand in hand, and I just really appreciate that. And so I really appreciate your involvement now as far as making this decision together. So, I thought that was a good way to handle that process and get the new jail built. So I think that'll be a good way to handle anything, projects that we have moving forward.
Yeah, I agree, and we set up the ability, I just want to make sure it goes to the right project.
Yeah.
Down the line.
I think we're gonna do that, but, I still would like to attend the land that's basically, trying to have a natural boundary that way. So, framework, or whatever it is, I think it'd be a good idea to hold on to that parcel of it. I think we can put it in a rainy day and keep it, keep it for when we intend on using it.
So one of the issues, it sounds like if we do sell the land, being able to separate and protect that money for a purpose yet to be determined in the future. I guess part of our thought process was, as a county government, we have statutory responsibilities to provide for our judicial system, among other things. As far as county government, we're not developers. We're not out there to try and build subdivisions ourselves. We can facilitate. I think this falls within our statutory responsibilities to look to the future to provide safe and efficient facilities for what we're responsible for. So, at the time when the county home was there, it had a specific purpose to support the residents of the county home and help them support themselves. But like I said, that's not the case anymore. So anyway, I guess once again, if there's public opinion, we're certainly welcome to. But I don't know, Julie Marie, as far as your process, I know you have a resolution prepared. Is that something you intend to address today, or what would you like to see?
I have it prepared to be passed today based upon what the council and commissioners decide. So if you are prepared to do that today, I'm prepared to give you a resolution.
As far as commissioner, is that something we want to address today? Okay, so as far as commissioners, it looks like we're on board with what you prepared. So Dennis, as far as council, I don't know if you'd like to address that today, or if you'd like more discussion, or what would you like to see?
The adjournment has to be in the actual meeting.
Yeah, we'll have to vote in the regular meeting, but I'm in favor of moving forward. We just can't keep putting things off. So for the work that you've done and the council preparation by way of information that we've received previously, I think we're ready to proceed.
So, Julie, Marie, and Mark, what would you look for a motion from council or commissioners, or what would you see a good?
Well, I think you're in the public hearing portion of this right now. So I think, this is the time, I think you invite, comments from any members of the public. You certainly want to hear if there's any public comments and during the public hearing portion. And so you can take that into consideration once you close the public hearing and go into your regular meeting. So the county council has to make a decision in the regular meeting. This is just the public hearing portion. And so certainly you can take questions from the public, respond to them, and have some discussion. But I think most of your discussion should take place following the public hearing in your meeting. And then you can get into the details of, are you gonna sell it? Yes, no. Are you gonna sell some of it? If so, some of it or none of it? Obviously the yes or no. And if you say yes, okay, then how much? Are you gonna sell all of it? Are you gonna sell some of it? If you're gonna sell some of it, then which part? And so I think we can get into that in the council meeting, or you could discuss it even, now if the public has any comments on that. It's interesting just looking at, the way it's laid out. Obviously you have a north tract and a south tract. And you've got those then further divided. I'm just hearing, the comments that I'm hearing, and obviously the market it changes. Some things for certain, the market changes. I think 1997, when I started as county attorney, I think Adam and I were looking at a farm just 1 mile west of here. And we thought we almost had it bought for $2,700 an acre. And looking back, we were at that point in time, land was under 3,000, and we thought 27 was a little strong. We were hoping to get it for 25, and kind of backed off. So we waited. Of course, that opportunity passed. So I have a sore rear end. I keep kicking myself for that decision all the years later. But that shows you how much things have changed. So land values, as you know, over time, it says this, but in general, it's been very, very strong in Adams County. So I know we're sitting here looking today at it saying, gee, prices are really high. Maybe if we don't sell now, we miss that window. Well, I think it's only a matter of how big that window is, because the actual value continues to increase over time, which brings me to the possibility of maybe you say, all right, let's just sell the west tract. Let's sell everything on the west side, everything that's on the side by Golden Meadows, which has got that ditch running through it. You gotta have an easement, and it's a little more complicated, but and you may have concerns about what if we need some ground for Golden Meadows in the future or whatever. Maybe you look at it from, hey, let's sell everything on the west side. There's 3 tracts there, and you sell it at public auction, and you get the highest price. And the other east tract, you keep that in the bank. You keep that as a savings, and that's something that you can pull the trigger on in the future. And you got to keep in mind that you could make a decision to sell everything that's on the east side, sell that tract, which is, what's the total on that? That was 70 acres, exactly. You could sell that, and literally 6 months later, you could take a decision to sell the other side. So it's not like it's going to take years to make the decision to sell. I mean, that can be done pretty quickly. But anyway, that's just a suggestion. I don't know if that has.
So would you say it'd be a good idea to have another joint work session before we adopt a final resolution? If we do adopt.
That's up to you. You certainly can.
So
Certainly can.
I think so.
I think we just need, you want to do another session or something?
I don't, I appreciate the work you put in. I don't see the rush to move it until, I hate to repeat myself, but
I think the only,
time and give it time.
sorry to interrupt you, John. The only rush, or I guess you hate to call it rush, is whether or not the county, that they need to get it rented out for 2020. 23. If there's not gonna be a sale in 23, then they need to get it leased. So,
So there is some urgency on that respect. So,
When is the contract up for the current farmer?
there was no current lease on the farm ground.
it was going to be bid out this year, but it hasn't been bid out yet until the decision's made on what to do with it. Yeah, and I know, I'd ask, Bob, what do you think? As far as lease, I mean, if you're gonna do a lease, don't you, what's the latest date to do a lease, March?
I was gonna say, mid to late February.
Okay.
Give you guys a chance to finalize, get some more inputs and everything.
And on leases, I mean, at least from what we've seen, the best, you get really kind of the best interest in a lease if it's a multi-year, as opposed to saying, well, I'm gonna do 1 year.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, guys wanna know they got wrapped up for 2 or 3 years instead of a year at a time.
I don't know if it's a matter of personal interest, but 5 years from now, all of this will be forgotten by way of conversation. So if it's proper, I think this data that we have ought to be part of our minutes for this meeting so that they're stored by way of record. And so if anybody ever questions why we did what we did, it's black and white in front of us. And Rex, you also have some information by way of investment benefit.
Well, I don't think any of that will be binding unless it's written into an ordinance and put into a fund. They'll have a recollection of what we discussed, but nothing will be written in stone.
Well,
I guess just Julie Marie for clarification. What we're doing right now, is that strictly a public hearing or is it a joint meeting?
This is a public hearing with both bodies.
Are we able to, we're not able to take action in this session?
No, this is just for public comment and interaction. You're going to have to break into your separate sessions to vote as to whether or not you want to adopt a resolution to
Gotcha.
sell.
So,
I thought the commissioners had previously voted their intent to approve this contingent upon the council.
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure you guys did that. So it's really up to council now. because I think
and even the independent bodies, I suppose in your meeting, you could take action in your meeting on this resolution.
Correct.
Or we could take action in our meeting, independently, and then bring it to the other body if such were the case.
Correct.
Stan, would you guys have any issue, or maybe it doesn't even matter because it's just a council thing, but with amending that just a little bit to say that it would go into that rainy day fund, like it would obviously go to general first, but then you're okay with the fact that we're planning on transferring it to the.
And that's the interesting thing with staying in our lane, as long as it's farm ground, it's kind of our decision on how to control it unless we want to sell it. But once it becomes money, then it's in your lane.
So maybe informally, I guess, you guys have any concerns with us getting it to end in rainy day? I know it's not your thing, but is that a reason, maybe a problem?
No. So I guess that would be a good end result for us. Stan, would that be two rainy day funds? Would you actually have two rainy day funds?
I would assume you just put it in the same one, right?
The same one.
It's just one fund.
Yeah.
So it
You just
go
have to
into
have
the
an order. Get it out.
But it can't be spent, like Tony said, they have to do a resolution ordinance to say what they're going to spend it on, and then it has to be spent directly out of that. So like right now, there's just an ordinance that says you can pay the 100,000 for emergency declarations. It's the only thing that's being spent out of rainy day right now. I don't know, other than that, I would just.
That's where I feel it's just disappear over time.
Or you can't, it's like it, sure.
It's an interest for ordinance, for anything.
Accordingly.
That's,
I think it would be well regarded as any place there, but because it couldn't be just appropriated out of the fund. It would take the whole council.
Well, that's my point. 5 years from now, the council could vote to use a large portion, all of the rainy day fund.
Yeah.
To drive and go somewhere else.
Yeah, you sure would.
Where it's not fenced and corralled and monitored as close as it is. I think it should. Once we sell it, it's gone. We're never getting it back.
Right.
But 5 years from now, they can do the same thing, sell it, and do what they want with it. If it's a different council, so, really it's up to the council at that time.
Exactly right, but right now it's listed before the two course probation and three corrections. And that's what the intent is right now for our action today.
No, I understand that, but my point is that the same thing, that if you're worried about council 5 years from now, it's on people, they can do whatever they want in that time anyway, so.
And I can't quite put my finger on what it is, but it's something about my just gut or instincts or whatever. I don't love the idea of county owning land. I don't know why, it just feels like we're being a landlord. I get it, you can see it like an investment, but it feels like we're kind of getting out of our lane. We're being a governing body, we're getting into the marketplace, which I get it, that's what we're doing, we're investing anything. So I understand the argument, but there's just something in there that the small government in me doesn't like us owning land. I can't put my finger on why, but there's something about that I don't love.
Any other thoughts from council? Otherwise, I suppose, if there's no other comments from public, at this time, we could probably step out of the public hearing, and it looks like it's gonna be up to the individual bodies to evaluate and take any further action, and if we do have another joint work session, or administrative session, then we could decide that too. So, but I sure appreciate what you prepared. I appreciate everybody's time to come in and address this and listen to it. So, unless we've got anything else.
I've got a question about procedure. Do we approve the resolution before we agree to sell, or do we approve the resolution after we agree to sell?
The resolution is
It's
the agreement to sell.
right, it's just a written memorialization for our files.
So if we approve the resolution today, we're approving the sale.
Yeah, we don't have to,
We don't have to prove anything today if we don't. Yeah, so it'll be up to your body as council if you want to take any specific action, and likewise, it'll be up to our body also. If we don't take any specific action, but we've tried to be as open and upfront with our intent as we possibly could, not only with council, but with the public, and try to hear everyone's thoughts and opinions. So anyway, that was our intent. All
I
right,
have a question.
yeah,
So when is the go time?
at this
Maybe
point,
we can sit here and talk about this for the next 4 years. When are you going to make a decision? This has to be done.
well, my intent personally is to form a committee after the first of the year to evaluate the judicial facilities that we currently have and look at our options to increase efficiency and safety in those facilities, and then proceed from there. So, that's my intent. So as of right now, like John said, there is no specific plan.
That's the point.
Yeah.
We've known this three reports have been there for 20 years.
Yeah.
And there's never a go time. Now we're going to do it.
Well, and that's a process, anytime you evaluate anything as far as for remodeling a building, it's always a process. And then when you are lucky enough to be part of a headless organization like county government, then that process sometimes gets stretched out, so. But we try and, make sure that everybody is informed and what we do is open and good consideration to make the best use of the resources that the county residents have given us to provide the best service to the county residents that we're responsible for. So. But yeah, we will begin that process after the first of the week.
We have a definite appreciation for the work of Rex and Stan and Ed in presenting all of the facets of the sale by way of proceeds, investments, and separation. So if there's no further comment. All right.
Thank you.
And now we'll have to have not a resolution, a motion to adjourn the public meeting. And
There wasn't a motion to,
hearing.
there wasn't a vote to enter the public hearing, it was just a public hearing.
We're just gonna close the public hearing and
Just close it
start
and
the council meeting.
then open up your,
I'll need a motion.
no.
No, we can just close it.
Okay, we'll close the
Just
public
call the
meeting.
regular meeting to order.
Call the regular meeting to order then. Can you stand, please, for the pledge of allegiance? Fair time.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Father, we thank you for the opportunity to join together today. We come to you in humble admiration of how big and how powerful and amazing that you are, even though that we don't understand it most of the time. We ask for your guidance and your blessing as we make decisions for Adams County. Help us to have understanding, help us to have productive, good conversations. And we ask for these things in your name. Amen.
Thank you. Yeah, first on the agenda is approval of minutes from the last meeting. Any additions or corrections?
Motion to approve.
Yvette, to.
Second.
Fred, Yvette? All those in favor of approval of the minutes? Opposed? Okay. Is
I don't see Sam here.
So it's over.
that
Just go
comment?
with Ian.
I go to the next.
Yeah. I think, Ian, if you would like to step forward, we'll take you ahead of Judge.
If I like the microphone.
They can't hear back there, they can't hear on the recording.
I guess I'll sit in front of it then. Can you hear me now? All right, thanks for having me. So I'm here today to just ask for an update on the ARP fund request that we submitted back in October on behalf of the advisory board from Community Corrections for the amount of $50,184. Just to read the letter that I typed out. Throughout the COVID pandemic, Adams County has seen a decline in arrests and court cases filed. This has led to a decline in referrals to Adams County Community Corrections. Furthermore, our project income balance for Community Corrections has declined nearly $50,000, which is greater than that now since this letter was written. As a result of our lessened number of our referrals, on behalf of the Adams County Community Corrections Advisory Board, we're asking to use asking for ARP funds to offset the loss of revenue directly related to the pandemic in the amount of $50,184. This requested amount will cover the cost of rent for our building for the next 2 calendar years, as we hope to return to pre-pandemic referral rates. We believe that we are the only county agency that's responsible for paying our own rent, even though we experienced reduced referrals throughout the pandemic. We still supervised over 400 offenders during that time for over 48,000 days of monitoring. This program is still a huge asset to the county, providing an alternative to incarceration that is both effective at reducing recidivism and reducing taxpayer expense. In the event that we are declined this request, we will be forced to raise fees and or make program cuts, which may include staff and programs offered. Thank you for your consideration. So as of today, I have 40 people on electronic monitoring, which is up slightly over the last quarter. But prior to the pandemic, we averaged around 60. And at that time, up to 2018, I came before you every year saying we broke a record. We have more people on monitoring, more days of monitoring this year than last year. But when the pandemic hit and we stopped arresting people, we stopped having court, we stopped getting referrals, and it just started going like this. In the last quarter, we had 1 month where we were in the black as far as project income spent versus project income brought in, but we continue to teeter-totter right there. We average about $25,000 a month in project income expense, and pretty close to that as far as what we receive. But when we discuss this as an advisory board, what are we going to do? Are we going to cut staff? It was brought, it was recommended that I come before you and ask for the ARP funds to help save us, I guess. So, questions, comments?
Question I got off the top. Isn't a trend nationwide also for your roads? Is the federal government with their grants giving any extra subsidy for the loss?
I did hear at our recent conference that they're asking legislature for an increase in community corrections funds because it's a budget year. So that's all I know. From the federal side, I don't know.
So anything will be a year from now before you say anything?
Yeah, we'll be looking at 24 grants here probably in this next quarter. So,
Jeremy, do you see it as though this is the kind of the new normal where we just have this one kind of artificial down thing, or if we're going to be down in the future, and I say down, that's probably a good thing, right? We have less people that are doing bad things, but do we need to right size, the organization at that point? If we got less income, we're gonna have to have less expense, and a short list, I don't want to just extend the problem.
I understand. I mean, our misdemeanor referral rate is drastically down. So I don't know that it, I don't make the arrests. I'm not out on the streets. I don't know what's happening there. I don't know if the sheriff can speak. I know he's in the room on behalf of that, but we do know that Judge Conrad's intentions are to start a mental health court in Adams County here in the next 6 to 12 months. He has asked Community Corrections, myself, to take the lead in that project. So we're hoping that by starting that court, it could lead to more referrals into our agency, because I would intend on using electronic monitoring as a part of that program. And we're always looking for ways to help the system better. We currently have 3 juveniles on electronic monitoring right now, which is slightly above average, but that's $150 a day per kid that you'd be paying to be in a residential facility that we're monitoring on home detention. And juveniles, they're not easy. They don't have that fear of going to prison if they cut their ankle bracelet off. So, I mean, we'll do whatever we can. And as we change and evolve with the system, we're still here to cut taxpayer dollars and change people's lives.
We have the sheriff and the prosecutor here, so I don't know if he just walks in, JP, on the spot, but do you guys have comments on the
When the pandemic hit, we basically told them this was everywhere. The officers don't watch, don't really be proactive, because we didn't want that interaction. And we didn't want the numbers coming into the jail. So as far as people going out and being proactive, we've created bad habits. And now it's command's job is get those habits broken. Let's get back out there and start doing it. I think we're getting there, but it's taking time to get the guys back into the saddle. So I believe it is going to increase. They've changed a little bit of the law where your level 6 felonies now, the judge has the authority to send them to the DOC or keep them local. So don't know how that's going to pan out. I do believe our numbers will start coming back up, especially the misdemeanor stuff, because they say, I'll take the point. I don't bring the pandemic. Don't go looking for misdemeanors. We're dealing with the violent offenders, the more serious offenders. And we didn't want the low level stuff because it just causes problems in the jail. So, we are trying to motivate the guys to get back to pre-pandemic standards, and I think we'll get there. It's just gonna take a little time.
Is that also the case with, you know, like Decatur PD, Geneva, or?
Correct. They were all into the same things, don't just relax a little bit. And we created bad habits, and now we're trying to break those habits.
Those even the limiting personal contact with traffic stops.
Correct. We weren't telling you about those stuff because of that personal contact. So again, we're slowly getting things back to normal. We're working on it.
What is your collection rate on user fees?
I don't have that specific, but it's high. It's very high. And I don't know if you've heard or not, but beginning January 1st, the clerk's office is no longer going to accept community corrections fees. So we're going to be in-house collecting, adding more work to our workload and such, but we're signed up to join TREX. And so we've got about $100,000 in past owed fees over the last 15 years that's sitting out there from people who've completed or violated off our program with a balance. And so all of those individuals that we have contact information from are going to get sent into TREX. And so hopefully we'll see a good deal of that. I mean, obviously they have to be getting a state tax return in order to qualify, but hopefully we'll see that as well. But that's one of my biggest things with the case managers is making sure that people are paying their fees. And we have an incentive program that revolves around paying your fees. So if you are not current on your home detention fees, you do not earn passes. You don't earn time outside of your house and your yard. And so that's been a positive because people want to, go to the grocery store on that 1 hour pass that they can earn per week. And if they're not paying their fees, they're not getting that pass. So does that answer your question of that? Sorry, I don't have that specific number.
Like I said, I feel like community corrections is a important, very important part of law enforcement and rehabilitation program for the county. And that I stand around and clean funded. Some of you said we do their own rent, and I know we kind of have a standing to pass it around to the rates and get all our ARPA requests, but I mean, I hate to see this go by the wayside and we send these non-violent drug offenders to jail, clogging up our jail system and in courts further than getting them treatment and rehabilitated and back out to society. But maybe, is it the 50,000, is that for 2 years, or could we go for a year and see if it picks up?
It's up to you. Yeah. I mean, our request was for the 2 years, but
50,000 a year, one lump
it's
sum of
for
50.
2 years. That'd be for 2 years. So half of that per year. So 25 and some change. So that's what our annual rent is at the building that we're using now,
Yeah.
which we're in year 5 of a 10-year lease on that building. So as I hear Stan talk about the big plan, you got 5 years, or we're maybe looking at another lease possibly, and that's kind of where we're at.
So I think it's sidestep their own process, but this could be a
I don't know that we
bad
have,
thing.
I don't know that it's on, I don't know what agenda it's on that we'll deal with all these. I don't know where,
And I think it's at the end of it.
we've got a good list now, so. Are you at a point right now where you're getting to the place where I don't know what your cash balances are right now. Are you at a place where we're starting to run into cash flow issues yet, or is this still coming?
We're at $67,390.93 is our current cash balance in our project income fund. So that gives you an idea since October where we're at.
And how much comes and goes out of that account? I mean, is that 2 months, 3 months?
It's about $25,000 a month that goes in and out, is from what I've been watching. So Bree can correct me if I'm wrong on that.
2 or 3 months.
Yeah. And I mean, we're still collecting. We're just, and to go back to your question about, the size of our department and such. So last night at our advisory board, we had Mary Kay Hudson from Indiana Office of Court Services present, and the board voted to move forward with some system mapping for Adams County. So we're going to have Indiana Office of Court Services come in and take a look at the entire judicial process from arrest to release and make suggestions as to could we do things differently in Adams County? Could we be more effective? Could we be better? And who knows what they're going to say about the Community Corrections Department. We have a case management staff that's built to handle 75 offenders. We're not there. And, you know, I can tell you that if we were to lose staff, we would look at restructuring at this point in time, simply because it makes sense to. But hopefully, you know, fingers crossed and prayers that the numbers can continue to get back to pre-pandemic rate, and we won't have this issue, because we didn't have this issue when we built this budget for that number of offenders when we had them back in 2019, 2018.
I personally don't have an issue with using ARPA funds to pay a year of his rent. It's gonna take a while for the JRAC committee to come in and do that whole mapping system, and a year buys you some time to build up your PI again. So I don't have an issue with authorizing the 1 year's rent out of ARPA funds for them.
When are we, because we've got all these requests now, are we gonna do them all at one time later today or a different meeting?
Even if you approve these ARPA requests today, the additional won't be done until January, because the additional was done for December. It has to be advertised, has to be published. So if you approve any ARPA requests today, we'll do an additional in January. That's when that will happen.
Julie Marie, do you have ordinances for all of these requests?
I do have all the ones that are on today's
So you can,
agenda.
they can approve the ordinance.
Right.
They approve the ordinance, that gets us the ability
Resolution.
to do a resolution to do the addition.
Yes.
Before next month?
Yes, I do have the resolutions for,
We can't do additional
Everybody
until
that's-
next year, but
Right.
I don't think we should do additional until we know the money's gonna be spent.
Right.
So if they sign the resolution, we have the resolution signed, they are allowed to spend the money. When the money is going to be spent, then we can do the addition.
And nothing carries over with ARPA either, as we've discussed before. So anything approved in January, that kind of starts over. There's nothing on the table. There will be nothing on the table left from this year when we go to January, because it does not carry over.
You have to redo it.
Yeah.
So do we all just want to do all of them in January? And I didn't even start having conversations about them, but
So you can approve them today, because she's got the ordinance for it. It just, the addition will be done next month.
it'll be a big conversation, so I just don't know when you want to have that.
As a matter of record, we have $3.5 million available. And by way of pending request, we get $1,665,000. And so this request is included in this total amount here. So I'll basically cut it in half, and that money has to be spent by 2024,
26.
26?
well, it has to be approved.
Approved by 24.
That's by the end of 24, you have to have the plan, and you have to the end of 26 to spend.
So we will require a motion to that effect.
I don't know. I feel like this is a big conversation. I don't know. I just want to ask him, like, do we want to open that right now and go down that road?
I'm hoping to just rush into this. We've had 2 minutes to talk about this.
There's some of the requests have been out there since August.
I think we're just talking about the community corrections request for $51,000.
No. Okay.
Whoever's in front of us addressing it, that's what we're addressing right now.
Just Ian right now.
I mean, I would kind of like to just do them all at one time, as long as we can say, let's just do it, you know, later today or next month or something. Because I feel like they all relate to each other, you know, if you do this one, then are you going to do that one? And, you know, some of them are similar, so I don't like the idea of piecemealing them.
Well, can I just make a motion then, and you can vote however you want to. I make a motion to approve the $25,000 of 1 year of rent for community corrections out of ARPA funds.
For 2 years.
She said 1 year,
Oh,
25.
so you're voting for 25,000.
Right,
Okay.
for 1 year.
And a comment then, do we have, because we have 2 more of these after this, right, that we're talking about?
We have the treasurer and the town of Geneva are both here for ARPA fund discussions.
So does that mean we're going to decide on those ones then too? If we're
That's
deciding this one?
entirely up to you.
Recorder.
Recorder, I'm sorry, forgive me.
That one's like
Sorry,
700,000.
Do I have a motion and a second to approve the request for $25,000? All those in favor? Opposed?
Aye. Not because I'm against it, I just want to do it all one time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Yes.
Matt.
Sure.
Jeremy, would you like to share with us?
Sure. So what I have to report is what I think doing what you have to do, even though it's not popular and it can hurt people's feelings. But to go back to what Ian said, I can tell you that circuit court, which is where the more serious felonies are filed, averages about 100 cases a year. That's been steady for the last several years, even through COVID. In 2018, Superior Court, which is the level 6 felonies and misdemeanors, there were just over 700 filed. 2019, the year before the pandemic, there were 785. And this year we've had about 500 with a few weeks to go. I would concur with what the sheriff said. There's just been some bad habits among officers that have developed that they're trying to shake free of. I anticipate that will go up just because the youth of the officers, nothing against guys who have been around for a long time, but the younger officers tend to kick the dust up and run into things more. So stay tuned. Meanwhile, I wanted to report that a few years ago, I asked everybody on our staff to keep track of their time for a month. I want to know what you do every day, every hour of every day. I want to know how many hours it took to do this task, and this task. And we kind of monitored that along the way. This October, I had to make a difficult decision to say we don't need the number of people that we have in here. That was not easy because the person's position that we had to get rid of, very nice. Unfortunately, she's landed in the clerk's office where I'm sure she's doing well. But I just want to point out that if you look at our 2022 budget of nearly a little over $270,000 a year, what we will actually spend in 2023 is just over $211,000, so nearly a $60,000 savings. I know some of that came from the loss of the investigator, but we moved one secretary up to full-time from part-time and now eliminating the position of another secretary. I can assure you there will not be a drop in performance. We don't act that way and operate that way. But I think it's important when you guys are always trying to do these kind of things at pinch and pennies, what's going on with each department? Do we need all of these humans that are working? In my office, I was able to say no. In large part, that's come about because of technology. The ladies that we have there can pull the sled effectively, and we're getting it done. Part of that savings is also due to we no longer have $3,500 gas and lube item because we don't have an investigator, which just putting that out on the horizon and talks with the sheriff, I got to figure out what we're going to do with that car. We may have to auction it and so forth, but that will be used for some projects in the future to help increase efficiencies even more. I wanted to alert you to some transfers that have occurred once we eliminated the, yeah, go ahead.
Question real quick. Okay, so
Yeah.
you said that the officers are kicking the dust up, so to speak. So once they kick that dust up, are you going to be coming back before the council?
No.
Because now you
No.
have more work, you need
No,
an
as
additional.
a matter of fact, I know I push, but I think we will handle the increase. We can handle it with it. I don't mean to be derogatory. I keep using the Iditarod example, but these ladies that are there can pull that sled and we can put a few more pounds on the sled and they'll do it. That's what you pay them for. They are very good at what they do. And I want you guys to know that. So no, we will not come back for that. And that's really not the issue. And I'll get to that here in a second because I want to preview you on something else that's coming along. So while that's going on, we have remodeled, got rid of the antiquated countertop in there, and we're going to add some security features so that we don't actually have someone at the window. They will be able to press a button and there will be an intercom where the ladies can see who's there and they can let them in. Over 90% of the people who come to the prosecutor's office in foot traffic are not there for prosecutors' purposes. They want to know where the auditor's office is. And things of that nature. They kind of wander in. It's not a criticism of the lack of security. I know we have an officer sitting in the hallway now, and I appreciate that, but we're going to use about I think it's going to be under $8,000 transfer to do the remodeling and installing cameras and screens. Again, efficiencies in technology help us eliminate the persons that we need to do this job. Back to your question, no, it's not a secretarial issue. And I'm not asking for anything, so please do not hear what I'm not saying. I'm telling you this so you guys can be ahead of the game. And I anticipate other county councils are going to be aware of this. Recently, a study was conducted about the prosecutors in the state of Indiana. There's a substantial shortage. You're familiar with the Public Defender Commission's allocation of caseload and workload. We have, between myself and Chad, that's two part-timers, total 3. If you use the judge's weighted caseload, we should have 7. If you use the Public Defender Commission, we should have 5.8. I'm not asking for anything. I don't want you to think I'm here asking for that. I just want you to be aware that that's going to come up in the legislative session. You might want to follow it. Chad and I can get it done. That's where eventually there will be a need. The technology doesn't require as much secretarial work, which is good because we're able to realize those savings now. We can do this, but I just want you to be aware that that's coming.
Where do you foresee these additional attorneys coming from? There's already a shortage of attorneys.
We don't know. And there's proposals as to whether the state is going to pay for this, whether there'll be a reimbursement plan like the public defenders do. I don't know that we're going to, I'm not asking for that. I just wanted you guys to be aware that when you see that this summer, you're like, what's that all about? That's what it's about. Offices are going without. They have, Elkhart has 6 openings, and I think she can get 3 now. So, like I said, I don't say that to be scared or anything. I just like to keep you guys informed. But I also wanted you to know that we take it seriously when we say, when you ask me, do we really need this? We found a way to save it, and we're fine. Like I said, it's not fun. It's not popular. Hurts people's feelings, but it's not my money. I told people if it was me and Mark and Adam in our private office still, we could do that. But it's yours and not mine. So just want to give you an update. That's what we're doing. If you have any questions about that, let me know. But anyway, thanks.
Thank you, Jay.
Yeah,
Have a good Christmas.
you too.
I guess.
I feel like it's now my chance to be in the hot seat. My name is Agnes Schock, and I'm from the town of Geneva, here to ask or request your consideration for some ARPA funds for our IT for Geneva. Mike Brown has come in and done an assessment. Things that the company brought in was called Wired out of Fort Wayne, I believe. We use them here in the county. I met with Dan Nahor. Julie Marie gave me some good suggestions on who to talk to about what we might be able to do. So I met with Dan. Mike Brown has met with Tony at all the different departments that we have listed here on what Mike is suggesting we should update. This is for the integrity and security for Geneva to work within the county, to work with the sheriff's department, to keep all of our public safe. So the write-up that we sent in, as someone earlier read, there's to rewire the town hall, police, fire, sewage, street, and water departments. The project would also include upgrading some of our desktops and computer equipment for the needs of our public safety, fire, and police. The upgrades are needed. Have also been requested by Mike Brown from our IT department for security protocol. He says we really need to update our security protocol. The total estimated cost, which I believe was sent to your board, was $132,806.34. That included all of the wiring, all of the updates, all the equipment that would be needed. And as Tony and I sat together, Geneva doesn't have the monies sitting somewhere to come up with this kind of money in our current budgets or even in our future budget. This IT would enable the town of Geneva to be able to correspond with the county for the health and safety of our citizens. Also for the town of Geneva, we are in the middle of an item agreed order, meaning we have to become compliant to what they're asking for. We are in a low water area, so therefore we have overflows that have to be corrected. been happening for many years. IDEM finally just said, okay, we got to do it. So we have programs set up with our engineering firm and with Baker Tilly, working on all of that, asking for the SRF loans through the state. So our dollars that we have in depreciation departments for utilities are already set aside with our ARPA funds. And you got to understand, when you're a small town, your funds are much smaller. So we only have like 305,000 we got from ARPA. We use a small portion so far, but we have about 253 that's set aside towards this matching grant or loan from the state for the IDEM project. Safety load has already been used. We only receive about 75,000 a year, which, you know, in comparison to any other departments here, it's a small amount, and we utilize it the best we can for communications, safety for police and fire. So there really isn't any residual income in that every year. It's pretty much being utilized. So we're here before you asking to see if we could request some funds. We'd appreciate your consideration. I can answer whatever questions you might have. I met with Dan for a couple hours the other week, just talking about what he's done, how this would also help bring Geneva to a place that we all can correspond with the county for our security integrity. So,
I have a question, and I'm going to look at Mike Brown, who's sitting like
Okay.
right behind you.
okay,
So Mike, is this an upgrade that the entire county is going to do, or why is it just Geneva before us that's out Monroe and Burke?
They haven't done a lot of updates.
Mike, why don't you
For a
go?
very long time before I was hired on. When I went down there and started to make some changes in 2018, I couldn't even bring the fire department on. I requested at that time that they needed to do some networking work and so on, because their machines can't even communicate back up here. And it's only deteriorated since 2018. We were lucky to get the water department on for a very short time, but they can't get on and they can't communicate back up with us. But that's not as important as having the fire department been on. The police department struggles constantly. And everything revolves around their networking. They have 4 point-to-point wireless. It was put on top of the buildings and going to various places so that they connect their buildings to the central city hall. They were put in too low, trees are growing up now. I don't know when they were put in, but, you know, I can't go down and obviously cut down limbs off of people's trees and their property and so on. So and the dishes were basically used they're meant for home use and not for more of an enterprise use. On that particular thing that Agnes put down there for the money, we didn't even do the point-to-point part of this yet, because that's going to have to be taken into consideration with other people. My department can't do point-to-point. We don't find towers, we don't do dishes, we don't do any of that stuff. So that's going to have to include a whole nother set of quotes to try and get their wide area network configured. But this is just within the building. It was a combination of what they had in place when they wired the buildings, and they made it such that it was not beneficial to have it grow. And since then it's grown. They've added a cabinet, cameras, and everything else. There's no way to wire it into it. They got it in a place that they can put their equipment and have network switching there. It just needs completely revamped. Their city hall, just to give you an idea, their city hall was done with the cabling and conduit within the walls. and small conduit. So we can't put any more wires through the conduit right now. It's only there for like one wire per station. They don't have vapor barrier in the outside walls. So when we go down, when they say they can't connect, we go down, we open up the jack, and the inside of the jack is just covered with water. And that's why they can't get the connections in. So it does us no good to put wire back into the conduit again, because the same thing's gonna happen. It's gonna have to be surface mounted with new cabling. And the cabling has to be updated because it's for cable. From whenever it was done, it needs to be updated to take on more bandwidth now that's needed. And all these things factor into them not being able to communicate back up into here. All their server and storage and everything else is in this building right now. So they have to have much better networking. The communication between the buildings with the wireless point-to-point has to be redone. And that's not included with her figure.
But Mike, with all the details you just gave, is this gonna be a patch, or is this gonna be to get it up and running, good to go? Or is it just a Band-Aid?
No, this is redoing. This is.
There's a ground up restructuring and the
So this is a complete update with the security added onto it. If you go and you look at their outer buildings, nothing is secure. People can walk into there, the switches are right out in the open. The wiring is very bad. It all has to be changed out. Make it good, so they can continue to improve. You know, we're trying to make it so that the pathways are gonna be there, so that they need to add more equipment later on, they can do that.
So, I don't have a big problem with this. The one thing that I would definitely like to make sure going forward is, it sounds like the county and the city's really working together with the IT stuff, and I think that's a good thing that we're all, kind of on the same system and don't have a problem with that. But so it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, somebody down there just decided to throw some things up to use without really consulting anything, and they're doing it on their own, and it's really insufficient what they did, is that right?
Long time ago.
I mean,
So going forward,
IT has been out there before. It's not like they haven't been out to help, like he said, upgrade the fire department stuff a few years back and stuff. So
okay,
we've worked with what we can, but
so going forward, there will be, I hope, some, consulting of the county IT, right? And then, this is a topic for another time, another discussion, but, I feel like the county IT department supports all the cities for really no reimbursement of their time. And so I kind of have a problem with that a little bit, because our IT budget has skyrocketed in the last, from what I see, I was at the council for a couple of years now, but starting a couple of years before me, or 2 or 3 years before me, and don't get me wrong, I understand that we need the security. If we get hacked, it'll cost us more than that budget's costing us probably. So I get that. But we also, at least my perception is, we don't have a good plan. I don't know, it just seems like we are an endless spend on the IT stuff, and I don't know what the plan is. And so, we talked about plans earlier. I just feel like we lack that a little bit. So, I have no big problem with this, but I really think we need to get a concrete plan on how we're going to handle it. The cities within our county need to be a little more responsible for some of those costs. So
That's what I was getting at, is this is gonna be a repair starting from zero at 100%. And we'll make sure it stays there, so in 5 years.
this is not 100%. It sounds like the city of Geneva will still have some things to do.
it sounds, from what Mike was saying, the point-to-point, which wasn't in here, and I don't do IT, so.
And I
Point to
understand.
point, I don't know if you have any idea what that costs.
And that's always a problem right now, is getting people that have time to come down and quote it.
And that's just the data transfer of the microwaves.
Yeah, it's for them, it's these like right now, they use the water tower. And the name is like down the city, but we have fiber that's coming in the water tower, and there's fiber that comes into City Hall. So they go from the water tower, and then they get out and maybe water purification plants, water, wastewater plants. They get out to that, they have a mission goes from there to there. What Geneva can do is they can work with, that's does the CFS and watch communications and so on. They should ask for some help on that, because
But we're about that, though, Mike, I do believe, I mean, we don't need to hash out a plan right here now, but if they consult with Watch Communications, your group should be part of that, in my opinion. If we're all doing that, and we're doing how we need to be part of all that stuff. And so, A, jobs up with our systems that we have here, and B, we want to make sure that it's sufficient to accomplish what we need to accomplish and still have the security that we need. So it shouldn't be them on their own. You guys would be involved in it too, I think.
yeah,
We appreciate that.
But again, I will still also say, I think right now, we are supporting the county and all the cities with our IT department for very little cost. And I think something in that does need to change as well.
So Agnes, it sounds like you've known about this problem for a while, or the town of Geneva has known that these upgrades needed to happen, and there wasn't a plan or a priority to have IT spending in your budget. If we put all this money into this program for this to get people to the rest of the county, does Geneva have a plan to maintain that system?
Well, when you said, it sounds like we knew about it, no, I can't say as we did. So having Mike come down and assess, I don't know what prompted that. What prompted you come in to look at all of our systems?
it was people in the department that they couldn't
Okay.
get connected. And, you know, when I brought that up in 2018,
Okay.
when I was down there, I said, we can't get connected. I can't get connected with the fire department, and your switches are outdated. And so back in 2018, I was working with your departments to try and get updates done. And we can't pay for it.
Right.
I can't pay for it out of my department's money. You guys are gonna have, anybody that isn't part of Adams County government is gonna have to support their own stuff, their switching, their PCs, and that sort of stuff. And we basically go in and try and help you and want you to get it purchased to bring it online and to come in to our network.
So my understanding was only the internet part of knowing we can't always get, like if you go into town hall, you can't get on your phone, that kind of thing. That was what I knew previous. So this was more information that I really didn't know how insufficient we were across everything else. So yes, from my understanding and from what your question was, is this going to be the whole picture other than our point-to-point, which Mike just pointed out, which we need to now update, get better height on our towers or dishes so that we have better connectivity. We can check with Watch Communications and get whatever quotes we need for that. But my understanding from Mike is this takes care of our whole system. And talking with Dan, he said he just updated a whole bunch of stuff at the county level. And this is the same company doing the same types of work. So we're feeling we are connecting with all the county systems if we go this direction. So.
I think I would echo a lot of what Fred said, but the other thing that kind of maybe concerns me a little bit is, there's a lot of different organizations out there that got, ARPA money, including Geneva, and burned that money and gave that money to Merrill, everybody else, but we haven't given anything to them. And I'm a little bit concerned about crossing that line where now we're going to start giving to other places that also got money it's not us, right? I mean, we got money for taking care of the county, and if we're gonna sort of bail out in a way Geneva, what about the other, what about the other towns? Should we do something for them too, or what do we need to do? And I just don't love that idea. I think that kind of going back to what you had said about the AT is, we need to be responsible for us, and they gotta pay for their stuff. And that part concerns me a little bit that we're crossing that line. But I understand the situation you're in. I get that. You're kind of back up against the wall right now. You're doing your job, trying to get what you can for your constituents. I understand that.
Yeah, and somebody just suggested that I come to the county council to request. I don't know that Geneva ever has before, so we thought we would try. We are in a situation where there isn't this kind of money anywhere, and as Tony pointed out, even looking in the future, if we have to do it over time and at our cost, I don't know that we're going to meet the same standards. Sure would want to, but how long would it take us to ever get to where we're going to be secure, and sure would like to be.
But I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, they are a part of our county. But that situation is almost perfectly designed to help infrastructure and develop and maintain safety and security for emergency personnel and data transfer for the county. And I know you're saying that Geneva's their island, but it's in our county, same as Bern. A lot of different people are touched in different ways because we're all in the same boat essentially.
And if I could just bring back to the table, if it wasn't for our IDEM agreed order, we would have that 263,000 to be able to help do this. But we're kind of in a crunch because of that, and that's going to take
I would have a
5,000,
question.
600,000 to do it.
As, probably for Mike, and for the council's benefit, Geneva is currently in our network, is that correct, Mike?
Yeah.
So there would be a concern with security. There's a concern with security, which is part of the reason that they are seeking the revenue, is to make sure that the entire network is secure.
Yeah, they're pretty darn secure right now because they can't even connect.
That's really secure. That's very secure.
Sheriff, you had a comment?
I do. Because of it being connected, the law enforcement is connected. And with the new system that we have going installed with the Flex and stuff, if they're not connected to our network, the interview rooms aren't connected, I think that's a bigger issue. Because that interferes with their jobs at that point. And I think it could also interfere with their, the safety of their officers and their public because they don't have the connectivity to look at those name files and see that at their fingertips. So that is a concern to me as far as their officers being able to communicate with our officers and stuff and to get the information from our dispatch. So I would encourage you, I understand what you're saying, they need to take care of their own, but in this instance, I would highly recommend that you please go with this so our police and our public safety can stay connected as a one unit. And that's how we are now, and it needs to stay that way.
I think Corey made a great point. So I would, if this were to be approved, I would also say that doesn't guarantee anything for any other city. I mean, maybe that doesn't seem fair, but because it is on our system and for public safety, I don't have a big problem with this, but there's still some things that definitely need to change within our IT department. So.
And I would feel better, we've got another soon-to-be council member for Geneva sitting back there, that if we're going to put this money into your system, I would like to see IT as a bigger priority in your budget than some of these other things.
It's not going to get any
This-
cheaper.
But this is not the first time Mike has talked about this. I mean, he said it's been 2018 and they haven't done anything. So there needs to be a plan, and IT needs to be a bigger priority in your budget.
Any other further discussion?
I'm trying to be creative. I don't always just be the negative, the no, but another way to maybe get to positive for me, to try and be somewhat fair, if we were to say, hey, I'm really down for smaller government being in place. So what if we were to push similar funds to some of the other municipalities? So we were to say, all right, we're giving you guys 132, let's give Decatur, Monroe, Bern, give us proposals, or just give it to you. You guys decide what you want to do with it. You're not really that directive, but I'm sure you find a way to do it. Let them decide what they want to spend their money. That would be fair, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. But we're not going to decide that right now, I'm sure. But that's just an idea to chew on.
So we're going to need a motion to approve the request.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
John, Greg. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed?
And again, I just want to do it all one time.
Any other questions for me?
What's the total amount?
132,806. Thank you.
So that nature.
Thanks.
Thanks, Greg.
All right, you. That's all.
Yes,
They just had procedural questions.
I'm sorry.
Do these requests also come to the commission?
No, we don't. The ARPA funds are decided by the council.
Tom?
Thank you, Mike. Mike, thank you for your perspective.
Well, like everybody else, I just check on to see where we are in the ARPA money, but also to go along with that, the original amount I asked for was $391,162.75. I'm changing my request to $380,764.30, which is a little over $10,000 less, because I got with the company that's doing my project, and we cut out a couple things, and so it will be actually less money I'm requesting.
Say that amount again.
Your request would be $380,764.30.
And remind me, this was a scanner?
This is, I had all my books in my office scanned. This is to index them so we can get them turned online. So like title companies and won't have to come in as much. They can they can do it online. So if we do have another pandemic or shutdown or anything, they can still continue to work. We don't have to worry about letting them in the office.
How long would that take you to tell you?
I want to say about a year.
Okay.
And I think they're ready. So they're not
As they get it, you have nothing, and then all one time.
we're going to probably put little by little on. But they're just now, all they do is waiting on the word to get started.
Mm-hmm.
How
So
many years will this encompass?
they think they can get it done in a year
No, I mean, what you're going to store.
from day one of Adams County.
Because we're only back to like 1990 right now. We're only back to like
1990 and forward, we're already there. This will take from the beginning of Adams County to 1990.
Is there gonna be like a maintenance cost to
No.
keep up with this at all?
No.
Because basically we're just digitizing all those giant books.
Yes.
I always wondered, if we're on fire right now.
Well, now that I have them scanned, we'd be safe, because I have them at least scanned and stored somewhere.
Oh, okay, so now you're just indexing them.
Now we're just indexing so you can search them online on a computer.
So this is for somebody to do this, or it's for software?
This is for a company to do it.
Okay.
They, US Imaging, they did my scan project. I paid for that on my funds. Now,
my plan was to hire a part-time person to do the indexing, but IT would not let it leave the building to do that. So, and they came forward and this is what they gave me, a project. I couldn't pay this far on my fund, but they recommend going to ARPA because it is a safety concern. If we have another pandemic, you don't have to worry about bringing people into the office.
So it says private use processing software, but that's actually.
It's just, no, it's them doing the indexing, and it goes to a company called, we put it online through DocsPop, and then they search DocsPop.
Okay.
And once it's scanned, I mean, they don't have to maintain it. And
I was just thinking along that with software, was wondering if the, so.
So you guys can decide if you want to approve it now or approve it later, but I just wanted to let you know I am lowering the amount.
What was that new amount, 380?
387.64 and 30 cents.
$280,764.30.
So 765?
Huh?
It's 8765? I can't do an additional 30 cents. That's why I'm saying round it up.
Just make it 0-0.
I'm just telling you what the quote is.
Now, you mentioned something about, you thought about hiring somebody like a part-time assistant to do it, and then
I
what
was
was
actually
actually.
going to hire the recorder. She who lives in Fishers, she was going to do online, but Mike wouldn't let me have a computer that's outside the building. Now, that would have been probably like a 3 to 5 year project, by her doing it part-time. So, if not longer.
And this is something I think actually makes a lot of sense. I'm going to stay consistent. I think we should do this all one time, so I'm going to vote no, but I do really like this project. I think this makes a lot of sense.
The ones we have voted for were more emergency based, I think. They're like immediate action. How immediate is this report? I mean, it's done.
It all they're doing, I mean,
We're just waiting for a check to.
not a check, just the okay to go ahead. I mean, they won't make me pay until they're probably done, or they'll probably make me pay in stages.
I guess I'll take a resolution.
I mean,
Just take a vote.
it just means that I can assume that it'd be taken care of. But everybody hasn't had a right to approve it until we do it all at once.
Do we know, but just so, can I tell them when that's going to be? I mean,
So can we put this on the January agenda? Remember
I
that?
think we can do it January. Yeah,
If you want.
January.
Any problems with that?
If we have the mindset to delay it till January, that's fine too, but it's before us today if you want to vote.
What,
Well, all of these other people were before too.
if you want to have these, whatever they are on the agenda for January, just remember, by the deadline, we will have to have the additionals and the amount of what you plan to discuss, so that if you approve it in January, that additional has already been published and you're good to go. Otherwise, you would have to wait till the following month to get the addition.
So this one's been published.
Yep.
So you could publish all of these for January, then we can pick and choose. We can have a debate and discussion in January.
The two that were approved will obviously, we'll have to do the additional next month, other ones that are approved already. But we would also have to do them, if it's not approved today, but you're just going to discuss them for approval next month, we still need that amount published as an additional. Or you could decide not to do it, and we would just put a 0 out to the right. But if you approve it, you have to have already had the additional published.
So,
What's the pleasure of the membership?
You have to approve it,
Gotcha.
approve it to publish it, right?
So a request will benefit quite a few agencies.
Well,
yeah, well, back when they had the pandemic, the prior recorder was trying to limit number of people to come in because you could have 5 searchers in there at once. So she was taking appointments. And I know that caused them a little stir because, you know, if 2 people were in there, that's what she limited to, and the third one wanted to get in there, they were kind of like, so that would stop this. I mean, and actually it would help the books because it's going to be lots of people going through the books too. I mean, like Corey said, if we had a fire before I scanned all those books, we'd be out all that history. And now at least I have them scanned to where they're safe. And I also scanned some of Tony's books too at the time under my project. So, I mean, I was trying to help the county out with that too, so.
Have you talked to the clerk's office about their stuff or not?
No,
The clerk's office?
she just asked me, the company that did my project, she didn't talk to me about anything else,
Does the clerk has her own clerk fund that they could use for something?
probably. I mean,
But this is the man, anytime you buy or sell property, you gotta do a title search on it, and you're going, that's where you're going, is recorder's office to see what's in there.
and it's,
Honestly, it sounds like we kind of plan on okaying this one. I would be fine with doing it now. Just take one of them off the books for January.
do this,
I've got it redone.
you know, if you want to do an hour later.
I'll do that one right after we're done with this.
Well, to that effect, we'll need a motion to proceed.
I'll make a motion to accept or whatever it is.
Kathy, second. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed?
No need. I heard.
Okay.
Why are you doing that, Corey?
Same reason, it's one day one time.
Jalen's printing it out. That's going to be 24.
Yes, it has been verified.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, in addition to that, the recorder does have a request. I sent out the proposed resolution on that along with the affidavit as required by statute. He's simply asking for access to $7,000 of the perpetuation fund for use in his budget. That is something by statute he is allowed to access. However, the resolution or rather the ordinance is required. So that's before you for your consideration as to whether or not you will pass that today.
My goal is to not use any of my county general fund line items, to use this instead for the next
So
year.
you're on flip fund, right?
Yeah.
I'll make that motion.
These are resolutions.
This
still works.
They're not paying attention.
First and second?
Yeah. First and second, all.
Yes.
You voted.
Yeah, he's asking for per fund, so.
Okay, first, who moved? Yvette and
Now, this, just to let you know, this is the yearly thing I have to do. It's state board, so they'll have to renew it yearly, and I can change the amount as I go, as I see what I'm going to spend. But like I said, my goal is not to spend any out of my supplies and stuff like that, just use all this.
a motion and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
The ordinance number. Who made the motion in second?
Corey and Yvette.
Corey to that?
Geneva was 24.
Trying to look up an
This is
ordinance.
25. Or, I'm sorry, this is an ordinance.
Oh, I'll get there.
No, no checks.
We should be ready for ordinance 15. If I am. Everything's been added the way it's supposed to, it should be 15.
So the ordinance 15 for this.
So Dennis will sign it again, so that we don't, I don't want you to have to make another trip.
Anything else? I mean,
No, that's all I have to read.
hey,
I think 20, Ian's was 23, Agnes, Geneva's
24.
24. Yeah. The next resolution will be 25.
Also, we're sending out ordinances, resolutions.
There's something else. Okay, this is the. Let's record one. Oh no, this is the $7,000 one.
Yeah, I've got this one coming, which is this one.
Yes.
This is,
His first one.
yeah, the big one. Just give me whatever.
Yes.
Have a few things before you folks. First of all, we need to pass the resolution for, the schedule of meetings for 2023. I believe that was circulated to everyone. If that is acceptable, as it's been proposed, that would be resolution 26. Is that correct, Tony?
A couple of us were talking, two things to think about. One would be, if we want the budget workshop hearings after the public hearing. If we want to just flop those and put those that we're doing the hard work before we publish it to the public, that way we're giving them what we actually intend to do, instead of having to artificially guess an inflated number that we don't publish them. I would remove the need for us to have to advertise high, instead we can advertise what we're intending. And that would just make it a little bit more transparent. I think that's the way the statute was intended to be there in the first place. So if we do that, we'll just be moving, leaving the public hearing on Tuesday, September 12th, that'd be the same. You're just moving your budget hearings to be before that, so you figure out what you want. Tell the public what you actually want.
You're gonna risk losing money. Again.
How are you going to risk losing money? You're just doing the hard work.
Go back. And so that's why DLGF will ask us, usually in January, we have to fill out a form telling them these dates. And then when we're into budgets come May, June, then we have to, you have to advertise high. If you don't advertise high, you can only get what you advertise. So if you mess up, you're done. Like, you're getting what you advertise. So if you forget and you don't advertise $1 million, you're not getting that $1 million back ever.
I think the thing is, what you're saying is, whatever you advertise, you can't get more than that. So what we've been doing is artificially advertising sky high, so we have lots of room to make decisions.
Because you don't have your true assessed value yet.
Right, so what I'm saying is, just do the hard work first. Decide what it is you actually want. After that, that's the point of this. There's absolutely no reason that the statute or the legislature would have ever intended to have a public hearing on false numbers. They want you to advertise what you intend to do. So the public has an opportunity to hear what you intend to do and reply to that.
So that's why we tell, so what comes to the public hearing is we tell the departments, turn in a realistic budget.
And then that's what you're advertising. So I'm just saying, before we advertise it, let's do our workshops, decide what we actually want. So instead of just throwing in the wish list of everything, put in what we actually intend to adopt.
I just don't think it would be best, I don't think, to start cutting a budget before you ever advertise it. And I don't think the DLGF would be okay.
Tell me why that's not the purpose of the statute, to advertise what you intend. You want to give the public an opportunity to comment on what you're doing, not on the fake numbers.
If they turn in a realistic budget, they're telling you guys what they want. Then it comes to you and you guys say, okay, well, this is what we're cutting, this is what we can afford, or this is what we don't want to.
It still doesn't logically follow that you're going to go to the public and say, here's a fake number, but we only got to this number because this is the maximum that everybody wants. Why would we not, as council, do the homework first? Figure out what we want to adopt, propose that to the public, and let them comment on what we're actually doing. That's the purpose of the public hearing.
If there's going to be like some type of potential issue, I would actually like to meet with the DLGF and talk to them about that. Before we do something like that, I really want to try to know the effects that it has
because there can be some very detrimental effects to us. And
And you also need to talk to other counties, because other counties do all the hard work first and present the public hearing, the final budget. This is what we intend to do. So we have it backwards than other counties.
other counties are also taking the field of it. Everybody is. Which isn't what we're talking about. We're just saying, what are we planning on spending? Well, this is a spending conversation, not a tax conversation.
I get it, I understand what you're saying, but I definitely would like, I've been a lot, I've been a couple different times. And so this is something I would like to talk to them about. If it's gonna be some type of issue, I just wanna, so maybe this year it has to say where it's at, but it's, I mean, it's gonna set up a Zoom, while everyone says, I'm not opposed to doing it. I just
You can set up a Zoom meeting at any time, it just can't be a quorum. It can only be
Right.
3 at the most.
I'm happy to meet with them too. I will tell you, I did reach out to them directly about 2 months ago and I asked them, is there any reason we can't do our public workshops to be fair advertising? So that we advertise a realistic number. And their reply was, that's perfectly fine, I'm not going to do that. But if we want to, hear that directly from them, I'm more than happy to do that because I don't want to do something that is unintended. I just want to make sure we're not saying no just because that's what we're done.
And you can set up budget workshops, not even as part of these meeting dates. You as a council can say, okay, can we get the commissioner's room or some other room and have certain departments come in as you go along to get numbers from them? There's no issue with that. I mean, that can happen. And in the past, I know council has divided up. For example, Kathy is up our rep for offices up in our floor. So that in the past was kind of our way on council to speak with departments, what have you got coming up, are really big expenses, what's going on with that. So yeah, that can be done as you go along. And anytime that you want 2 or 3 of you come up for a Zoom meeting, I can get with Fred Van Dorn from DLGF or Wayne Hudson, our rep, and they're more than happy to do that. There are questions they can't answer or won't answer because they can't give advice, but they can share, certain scenarios, stuff like that.
So if we approve these today and we want to amend them, is that a big deal?
It is not. It only simply has to be properly advertised prior to it. So if you want to flip around when it comes closer to it, you can simply indicate in the publication that we're doing it open discussion today, and then next week or next month, we're going to do something else. So that's fine. This is really just a placeholder to satisfy the statute that you're doing what you're supposed to do into something.
And then for our purpose in the auditor's office, we have to enter into Gateway at some point the actual budget hearing date and all these different things ahead of time. I'm not sure
That's in March.
that's a March. Bad, so.
You've got time to decide.
Maybe even in January with them.
When they do budget workshops, they only include 85% of the assessed value, not 100. So that, as we discussed last year, that kind of artificially inflates the rate because they only include 85, and that's in order to get your max levy. So that rate then came down when the budget was adopted.
So I would make a motion to approve, which can obviously, with the potential that it could change.
Okay.
26.
So we don't want to talk about that, just see the thing. It's okay. The other question, we talked about this 2 years ago, but what do you guys think about moving to evening meetings? A lot of us that work, it's just hard. We obviously make it work, but then also the public who wants to come really can't come, during that time. I think, although I'm not sure, we're probably one of the only municipalities that meets during the day. But I'm looking at you, I think City of Brown is in the evening, right? That's true, we're in the evening, I think the games in the evening, school board's in the evening. I think we're one of the ones that's,
It would make sense to have it during the morning because you're interfering with all those other meetings. If anybody wants to go to those, they can't because they're now meeting here. The other thing to consider now, we're going to strictly overtime. Anybody from the county that has to come to meetings in the evening, we're going to pay them overtime to do it.
So Brad, how did it work with the city? Because I'm assuming it was the same thing. You guys had to go, you just didn't, just switch your hours or would you go?
No, most of the time, I can't answer for everybody, but generally when it was something that affected your department, you go. And I don't ever remember getting paid over. That was just the way they did it, so I don't. I know there was times I would go, you know, kind of like just to be aware of what's going on. If they needed an opinion voice, I could voice my opinion.
So how is you're in Jay County, what do they do?
The department just kind of moves their time, so they leave early on Friday. They have to stay over.
I think they're job.
There is no overtime paid.
They meet in the evening then?
Sometimes it's 6, sometimes it's 7.
So only those that are on the agenda get paid. You know, like if you just wanna go just to be going, you know.
Usually it's
that's on your
department.
own. I don't think that, you know, if I'm working for the county, if I'm working for the auditor's office, I decide I wanna go, but I'm not on the agenda, then I would get paid.
That would be between them and the department head.
But that makes
And with
sense.
timekeeping, that adds a whole other element. When they just clock in, they say they'll clock out early. And some sort of clock in the office on a computer, some clock in on the phone. Who seconded that last one, the waiting dates?
Nobody has yet.
Nobody did.
Oh, did you decide to make a motion?
Fred did.
Fred made the motion. There's no second.
Okay, so no second yet? There's no second yet. Right. I mean, I don't know, I do sort of do like what you said, I mean, we've been kicking this around for a couple of years now, so I don't know if anyone's had any epiphanies or if, you know,
I guess I would assume leave it as it is and like discuss maybe the budget. You know, there's not a lot of pressing, they're all very important decisions that we're making, don't get me wrong, but there's not a real pressing matter that would draw a lot of attention. It's pretty mundane, day-to-day operational business. That might be a factor why we don't have a large draw.
this is during the day. Yeah, it's just hard for people to get away with time if they want to.
No, I mean, the mundane issues of an everyday person. There's not any controversial issues except for maybe the budget. That'd be one of the more important, probably the most important decision we make. And maybe, for instance, have those meetings at the beginning, the public hearing, or if we have a circumstance of a high priority, decision we have to make, then we'll change it that month to an evening meeting versus a morning. Just laying that out there.
See, it doesn't make any difference to me because I don't have a full-time job, so, other than this, so.
I would just hate to draw all these people in here.
Other than, I would say if you're going to go evening, I would go early evening. Even if you had to like take half an hour off, those that work, instead of being off, 4 or 5 hours in the morning, you could end up only having half an hour off your regular job.
So what about this? John brought up a good point. If we approve these, throw them in the areas, or we can just pick one at random and try it at the evening meetings this year and just change it with something. What's everybody think about that? Because we could go back and forth about this all day long.
I want to make a comment that this spring when I was meeting with people in my district, the first complaint that they had was the county roads, which I've talked with you about that. The second one was that the meetings are not available to them because they're working individuals and they cannot come during the day. They have to take off of work. And they felt that that was wrong. That was the second complaint that I heard the most this spring from District 4.
I think if we put some meetings in the evening, do it here and there where hopefully that would satisfy. We feel like something's important, especially, we can make one of those evening meeting. But right now, we're just approving a schedule that we can change, so.
Well, unless you're going to have a second, the motion will die.
Well, we're just
Well,
in the
you
discussion
won't bring a
phase.
published meeting for January if you don't.
Yeah, we have to put it in this big January, but, yeah.
Give my opinion on this, my schedule fluctuates so much as it is. And if it comes down, depending on what the topic of the meeting is, I come to this so I know what's going on. I clear my schedule for this. I'm not missing family events just to come to see what's going on. This is business. It's been this way. It's always been this way. You know it's been this way. You will not get the participation from your department heads you put in this night. I'm just telling you that right now. Look, we barely do now. Unless you call us here, most of them don't come. And I think that's bad. Everyone should be in here at these meetings so they know what's going on. But I sacrificed for 30 years with my family already. And then unless this is deadly important, I'm not coming to these meetings if I have a child's ball game or something like that. Just let me know.
I'll just echo that. I was just gonna say the same thing. Some of you have kids, some of us have kids. You're gonna miss your kid's sporting event or I don't know, ballet, something like that, because you want to move the meetings to the evenings instead of now, and you can clock out at 4 o'clock or whatever and go to those meetings, those events. It's going to make it hard. And in addition to, some of us have other commitments outside of our normal daily work. You know, I coach a lot, and so I think that it's convenient for us department heads to be here when we need to be here, the current schedule. And if you change it to after hours, it's going to be hit or miss.
Sam?
You know, I think one of the justifications that you brought up is that so the public can attend evening meetings. I guess I've sat on many boards and committees. Like as I attend the Gator City Council multiple times, there's minimal of any time they don't come. You know, I've been to Rome City Council, there's no public there. You know, I've been to Geneva City Council, there's no public there. You know, so if that's the reason to change, I would say it's not very good. But as far as your convenience, as far as having to work, that was kind of what you signed up for. You know, that's my opinion.
And to be clear, I don't think that's the reason you're hearing from me or anybody else. This has nothing to do with my schedule, because what ends up happening, if you want to know my schedule, I just end up what I would have done working today, I ended up doing tonight. So whether I'm doing which one I'm doing, it really doesn't make a difference for me. It's more just about the fact of, well, to be open to thinking about things. But I would anyone not doing it, so is there a good reason or what's going on?
I just think that because your reason is just their home.
So I reiterate, I think we just approved this schedule, and I think we can change it if we want. I'll second that. We have the ability to change it at any point we want. And talk about this for 10 or 15 minutes.
John, could I approve it?
So if you want to, you have to ask about the other stuff then in January.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the schedule of meetings for 2023, subject to change. All those in favor? Opposed?
We can talk maybe.
Are you voting?
I'm saying aye because I'm really going to reevaluate for January, so.
Okay, that's fantastic. Bree can tell us a little bit more about this, but apparently, she sent some information out, I think it was last month, was it, Bree, with regards to some shortages in some, ARPA lines. Money was granted, on a number of things early on for COVID relief and what have you. Two of them that have gone into the red and have spent everything that was allocated previously are the line item for consumer technology and legal, and for COVID absences, reimbursing and giving financial relief to employees. So I have an amendatory ordinance on both of those for your consideration to add $10,000 to each of those two lines in order to be able to pay that, so it doesn't have to come out of general funds to pay on those budgets. Otherwise, ARPA money can be used and transferred to satisfy the deficiency in those areas. Bree, did I cover that appropriately? Okay.
So this is to cover something that we previously approved.
Right, you previously approved a lump sum, but that didn't cover the needs of the particular area, so additional funds are being requested from ARPA rather than general funds to cover the overage.
Should we state what those accounts would be?
Those two accounts would be the COVID, coronavirus, local fiscal recovery for employees directly affected by COVID. In other words, if they have to be off for COVID, the amount that was allocated was $50,000, and the additional $10,000 is being requested from ARPA to cover that overage. The other one is funds for legal consulting, technical and engineering services. The amount that was initially allocated for that was $25,000. An additional $10,000 is being requested transferred to be able to cover the overage in that area.
Thank you.
So, discussing this out.
So we'll need a motion for that effect.
Need a motion for each one of those.
I'll make a motion to accept, we're popping it already. It's a resolution, not an ordinance.
Resolution.
Was that a mistake on our end or their end, or just, was it as a guesstimate?
There were just some more expenses than I think that were initially anticipated. The other thing is, part of it is legal for ARPA because it was consulting, technical and engineering. I can tell you that some of it, we didn't use all of the legal money that was budgeted because it was being used for ARPA. So instead of coming out of general, it would be money coming out of ARPA, but it's the same amount of money. It's just a matter of where it's coming from. With regards to COVID illnesses for employees, there've been apparently a few more that have reported having absences because of COVID than was anticipated. So having to pay that, that's where that additional money is.
When does that policy end?
Well, that's the other thing that I was going to bring up for you. So it's open-ended. It was 2021, resolution 21 that specifically said we would allocate $50,000 for employees that needed benefits as a result of having been off work for COVID-related illnesses. We're asking for $10,000 more now. However, it seems as if it's not really going to be necessary ad infinitum. So it's the suggestion of the Human Resources Department that you vote today to end that option as of December 31st of this year.
The regular sick time policy.
Yes, regular sick time policy after this year.
I'll make a motion to do that right now.
Second.
Can we make it effective immediately?
I mean, you can, I think it would be best if you just do it at the end of the year. I've had one in like 3 months. It's really not been what it was.
Then why not pay it off now?
It's up to you.
Oh, I'm sorry, I
I
said.
amended to, I don't really understand that, so make a motion to end it right now. Yeah, make a motion to end the COVID relief.
Ending COVID immediately, effective immediately.
013.
The motion in the second.
Fred and John.
Fred and John are from the vet.
I did. I seconded it. I don't care who made it.
Okay. Just like that's my last name.
What is it?
Which is fine, but we're still in the red.
Right. I want a motion for that.
That was only motion 2. Okay.
Which one is which?
You're on the same time.
So the COVID time, the 10,000 will take care of that. And the 10,000 will take care, they'll be up to 35,000 in legal fees. But as she said, this can be spent until 2024.
Right.
So.
So should we end that? Is that what you're saying?
No.
I mean,
No,
there's
just
still
the
gonna be
COVID.
legal fees,
Yeah.
and they have to be in. But, I mean, unless you guys want to approve, I mean,
Well, since you-
permissions for ARPA will start coming out of council or commissioners instead of ARPA.
Since you can't carry over, it'll definitely have to be done again next year for last year.
Right, until the ARPA.
So the only reason for the 10,000 now is to make up the difference through the end of the year. Since it can't carry over, we have to start with the additionals again next year for whatever comes before us with ARPA.
Yeah. And just so you know, it's legal, engineering, consulting, technology. It's not just legal fees. It certainly is not just mine.
Yeah.
Mine are from a line item that is not being used because I'm billing for ARPA rather than billing for everything that is done. So that's why there's more money in legal unspent this year. So we're saying, let's spend it, ARPA money rather than general fund money.
So we have two resolutions to cover the $10,000 times two various accounts.
So the ending of the COVID pay, we have a motion and a second. Did we actually have a vote on that one? No.
No.
So we need a vote on ending the COVID pay.
Effective immediately.
So we need a vote on that.
Motion and second.
We got that. We just need to vote.
All those in favor? Opposed?
Okay, and now, what I have on the $10,000 shortage for COVID pay, I have John who made a motion. Did we get a second on that? Fred, and that is the additional 10 to make up for the COVID pay, whatever that title was. So, motion and second on that one.
Motion and second approved. All those in favor? Opposed?
Okay. And then the other one was the consulting, legal fees and so forth,
Technology.
which was also 10,000 to get through the shortfall and then through the rest of the year. So that's in 10,000. And Dennis, there would be a motion and second on that as well.
Motion and second approved the additional resolution.
Motion to approve.
Okay. John. Motion and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed?
And that will have to come up again in January since we can't carry over.
Right.
So we'll have to put whatever amount we, you know what I mean, what we think that would be for the year, or as close as possible.
Okay. I sent you a copy of the sheriff's salary contract that has been negotiated. It's essentially the same as last year's. We changed the date on that. I sent a copy of that to everybody. That simply has to be approved by the council and commissioners. So we need to take a vote on that, accepting the contract.
Make a motion to accept the sheriff's contract.
Okay.
Is it changing at all or is it the same?
Same.
Just signing the. There you go.
Motion and seconded to approve the salary contract for the sheriff as presented. All those in favor? Opposed?
There you go, there's 2 leaders. The sheriff's contract will too.
For what? Perform.
Yeah,
Transfers.
the first gotta be redone.
Remember, Post called and said we couldn't do that when we did it. You would have to start February 1st.
Oh, yes, okay. Bree, would you explain that quickly?
So whenever it was approved, but I don't know, it's like a motion time to take, county was picking up 1% of the employees, 3% for first. You guys signed that the county was going to stop picking up that 1%, and full 3% with the employees. And you made it effective for January 6th through January 1st, I don't remember. Whenever, you have to fill out a whole other ordinance to send off to PERC. And it's more work that they have to do. And I did that, and they came back and said, more or less, to do what we were doing. So we either have to amend it to where it's staying like it is, or we have to change the date to February 1st, I think it was.
So ones with paying the 1%.
It has to be on, so all of this is like pre-set up in the PERF system. So if we put it, the date that was well, if we keep it the date it was, it's going to be in the middle of a pay period, which our reports, when I go to upload, aren't personal accept, so it's going to be a big mess. That's why they always say, if you're gonna do it, you have to do it on the first of a month.
I was just asking if the county is gonna have to pick up the first month of that 1%.
I mean, it would just say,
Right.
we have to, so right now we're changing it. We have to change our system, and PERF has to change their system. So both systems have to be changed, so it's either we change both systems or we change the date back to February 1st.
I thought you wrote the ordinance that it was gonna be the first pay period. You didn't specifically state a date, it was just the first pay period.
And I
Correct,
can't do that.
but we sent that to, and they said no. So we're basically redoing that resolution
So it
today.
was to state what, February 1st?
It's gonna say February 1st instead of the first pay period, so sorry about that.
I'll make that motion to table that resolution or,
To the date.
yeah.
February 1st. I'll second. Change the date.
Moved and seconded to approve as presented. All those in favor? Opposed?
Thank you, and I'll get that circulated. Last but certainly not least, a formal vote needs to be taken as to whether or not the property is going to be sold pursuant to the discussion with regards to the sale of the Golden Meadows property. So at this time, if you'd like to discuss and take a formal vote on that or determine whether or not further discussion or meetings are necessary, now's the time.
I'd like to favor it. I would too.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Table it. And that was January.
Okay?
We need a motion for that?
No, I just made a motion to not do anything.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll need a motion to that effect.
I don't even know if we need to make a motion to table it. I think it's just.
Right. We'll just
Right,
take
no
it,
action,
just,
action.
in the minutes show no action.
Right, it was just table.
Yes.
Doesn't require a motion.
So it'll be on January's then, or?
If you want to discuss in January, we'll have it on there in January.
Steve?
Yes, if we table that for one more month, then we won't be able to put it up for bid if we decide not to do this, to have it out for rent. That's something that might be,
You'd have to wait till after the January meeting of council to see what they decide to do. Then you could bid it out after that date.
really short now.
So it'd probably be February, but
I'd hate to make that large of a decision just based on a bidder's. I guess. If it gets pushed out.
if we just heard about this in October.
It's not like.
I mean,
This is so convoluted.
I know, I'm sorry.
I mean, I'd be fine moving forward with it, and that's now, but I don't know if you guys want to wait. I mean,
Brett, you want to do a vote?
I'd rather table it, so. Personally,
You sound like you wanted the decision made.
you know,
Consensus to table this till January then.
yes, for me, it's, yeah.
Okay.
No, that's all that I have. Thank you, everyone.
Judge Conrad?
Thanks. I have just two grant requests for the consideration of council, and I appreciate your opportunity to let me come before you and make these requests. The first deals with an interpreter grant from the Indiana Office of Court Services. Obviously, the court is in need of interpreters, and so I've been utilizing, for sort of last minute hearings, there's a program called Language Line that the courts can use for free. Some of the issues with that service is that it could be an interpreter in the Spanish language who's literally sitting in Spain, and so finding that individual will be kind of difficult if those issues go awry. And so I'm requesting $8,101 from the Indiana Office of Court Services to fund certified and qualified interpreters to perform interpretive services for the court, primarily in the Spanish and Burmese languages. And so that's why that's what that request is for. That's about double what I requested last year, primarily because I would like that those, if there's going to be a grant, I want to apply for it, and somebody else is going to pay for it, all the better.
That amount though, is I've taken the average of how many interpreters I've had throughout the months, push that out to an entire year amount. So that's why, in part because my grant request to the state is very specific and is based on the data that we've used in the last year. I'm not just willy-nilly.
I think you came for an additional for that one year, didn't you?
We did, yeah. And so that what happened last year is I would get a grant, I'd apply for $4,000. I'd end up spending more than that because I'm trying to find these certified interpreters, and then I have to come before the council and ask for the overage. Now I'm asking for the grant to fund what I think will be the entire amount. So that's what that first grant is, and I have the county request for here for that application. So I give that to you.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Corey and Yvette to approve. Grant approval. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
Thank you. My second grant request is quite a bit more significant. It's a court improvement grant, also through the Office of Court Services. And it's to the tune of $235,000, 80 cents, $80.28. And that grant is to provide materials and labor to improve court security. Also, there's a portion of a court improvement that just doesn't deal with security, but it deals with improving court systems and so forth. And so a portion of that is the technological innovation portion, and that's to purchase and install document viewing equipment in the courtroom. One of the types of equipment is called an Elmo device. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Essentially, if I have a document and I want to show it to all you all on the screens, it looks like an overhead projector when we were all in school, only it projects it onto a television screen. And so most courts have those, federal courts, and it just makes presentation of evidence easier. And also part of that technological portion of my grant request is to soundproof the attorney conference rooms as well as my jury deliberation room. Obviously, everyone's familiar with the Superior Court layout and that a lot of them are simply drywall. And so just to protect attorney-client privileges when they're having that discussion in those small rooms, to put up soundproofing equipment and so forth. So that's a portion of it. And that also ties into that Access to Lawyers initiative that we've started, which basically allows folks that need pro bono attorneys. We link them up with other agencies throughout the state that provide those, and they can use WebEx to get in contact with those attorneys. And for those consultation meetings, those happen in the jury deliberation room, and to soundproof those rooms as part of that grant. And then, but the main portion of the grant is for security. And so looking at ballistic glass for my court staff, ballistic panels for around the courtroom, just protecting various individuals, key fob access. Actually today, ironically enough, the U.S. Marshals are performing an assessment of the building, right? They're actually over there right now. That's why it was a little late. They're going through and providing an updated assessment. One was done 2018, but just to update it with our new, we've added video cameras, things have changed. The public in general's mood towards the judiciary in general has changed. And so just trying to take all that into account to provide an assessment that then that then I can supplement as well once they've added their most recent thoughts. I've gone this route specifically rather than requesting ARPA funds at this point, because I thought it was a better idea to request a grant that's very specific and then allow, if in the event that that's not funded, then possibly seek ARPA funds in the future. But I thought it made more sense to apply for a grant that's very specific rather than just asking for a portion of ARPA money for that same purpose. So that's the reason for my request. If you have any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve the grant as requested. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you all. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Have a good Christmas, Judge.
Thank you too.
I'll keep this back once. Yeah. So the page. Thank you. All the others, so, yeah, still kind of. Well, I suppose it's supposed to be a letter, but they would never do it. Okay, I'll be back.
Thank you.
Are you anything to say? Still anything? Next.
Yeah, I'll go next and then you're gonna have to sign this. You got this middle again. Okay. So we get another dozen resolutions around the table here. We're getting close to the 30s now. I have, and we all should have gotten, we can start with transfers if you want to do it. End of year, you usually see a lot of transfers because they're trying to, clean things up and look at how and see what they need at the end of the year. So if we want to do all the transfers, I'll move to approve all transfers. Second.
Corey and Fred?
Got it.
Additional transfers?
Well, was that on the transfers first and then we'll go to additions.
Moved and seconded to approve the transfers as presented. All those in favor? Opposed?
Okay. Let's go ahead and we have additional, we have salary ordinance. Anybody have questions on the salary ordinance? We'll do that next. Those are replacement hires. Is the Sharon, are the jailers on here, those are replacement also, correct? So everything on the salary ordinance that you got is all replacement of people that left. Motion to approve.
Yvette, did you second that?
Yes.
Got it.
Motion to approve. All those in favor? Opposed?
And then additionals, we have, in county general, you have amount of additionals 120,600. That's county general. Then you have sales disclosure, which totals 2415. And the total amount of all the additionals is 123,580. Whether you have any questions on any of those, I guess I should ask. This is just for the rest of this year, right? Who's our rep?
Yeah, I think
Yes.
we pretty much have everything. There's a couple of transfers that were added. But I will assume not in here. I think between the additional cross everything off. There's been a ton of in-series transfers this year. We've had, as of yesterday, we've had 87 in-series transfers that never came, those don't have to come before you. So we've had a ton of transfers this year.
The contract additionals in there?
Yeah, sure. And that came down 96,000, which when I checked a month ago, it was down 50,000 from when we first started this process. So what we came up with yesterday, the payout of comp time will be 96,000.
Some people would try to use up comp time for that, as much as they could.
To the discussion. Need a motion to approve?
Motion to accept additionals? Which one?
There it is. Okay. There we go.
All those in favor of the motion, all opposed?
Aye.
Wait a minute.
Passing.
All those in favor?
Who's in favor?
You said favor and opposed. In favor. I'm in favor.
Who is opposed? There's like a delayed answer or something over there. Okay, I'm gonna leave these. I'm gonna leave these together. So that I don't miss any later.
The judge gave you everything?
Yeah. So he can do that. I'll meet us Dennis and meet us on this week. There should be two. There's that one and there'll be another one that you need to sign as well. Hang on, or else, so we would, yeah. I'm straight with that. So I think there's one right there. You want to bring that up?
Yes, I will. I have two additional things on the matters properly presented. We've received a letter from Steve Bailey tendering his resignation from the Regional Sewer District. And with my upcoming role as County Commissioner, I feel it would be unwise to continue as your representative to the Adams County Regional Sewer District. I've enjoyed this role tremendously and feel that the work being done by this team with the huge support of all Adams County is very important. The improvement in our water quality resulting from this effort will benefit not only Adams County, but people for hundreds of miles around us. With this letter and effective December 31st, 2022, I officially submit my resignation as a member of the Board of Directors for the Adams County Regional Sewer District. Thank you for your confidence you have shown me in this appointment. We need to accept his resignation.
Motion to accept.
All those in favor?
Next month, you'll have to appoint.
Yeah, we'll do the appointment next month.
Like, any appointments that will be open, you can discuss next month to see who wants to take what, I suppose.
And of course, as we're all aware, at the beginning of the first of the year, we'll have two new members. I don't think anybody who sits in these chairs realizes what's ahead of them by way of work, requirements, diligence. But I want to extend an appreciation to Keith and Yvette for their sincere effort in fulfilling their roles in the public trust that they've shown diligence, wisdom, and discernment all of their deliberations. And it's unfortunate that, Yvette, after you first came in, you wanted us to trim down the budget hearing, and are finally, after how many years to that point in time? I want to thank you for that, and also your part in establishing the wage bands and salary review board by way of the input that we followed by way of every wage and band production. So thank you both for your work. And you're welcome to share.
Thanks.
Enjoy working with you guys.
Dennis, I wrote something, if you don't mind, I
No,
read it.
not at all. Go
I'm going
ahead.
to take a few minutes because I've sat here for 4 years. I've put a lot of time into this position. I'm going to take a few minutes to read this, okay? So first of all, I want to take a stroll through memory lane to recap highlights of the last 4 years. When I took office, Tony was council president. That first year was a lot of listening and learning. Back then, council meetings were more like coffee shop gatherings. People would wander in to present their topic. All council members would listen and the discussion would happen. Each council member would talk through their thoughts, ask questions, and then listen to what the next council member had to say. There was usually a lot of discussion, but the conversations were laid back. Everyone had a chance to speak and opinions were respected. Oftentimes, members would change their thoughts based on facts that other members made during these talks. Motions were not made until everyone had stated their thoughts and perspectives. I found it extremely beneficial to hear 6 other opinions and facts because I certainly had not considered all those other aspects. I learned a lot during that first year. The council was a team and didn't bully or lash out amongst each other. We didn't all agree, but when we left at the end of each meeting, we respected each other and moved on. I appreciated all those council members in that first year because they made me feel like I was very much a part of a team, even though I was a newbie. During COVID, we learned how to conduct business in a completely different manner. Only a certain number of people were allowed in the council room, so technology had to be utilized. Of course, technology wasn't always dependable, so that presented a challenge in itself. There are 2 memories I will always have of our team's meetings. Tony's cat Oates would always walk in front of Tony's computer screen and meow into the camera. At random times, you'd see an orange tail appear and Tony's screen would wobble, suggesting that Oates was behind the camera trying to get Tony's attention. I'm not sure which was more entertaining, watching the cat try to distract Tony or Tony trying to appear like nothing was happening. That was a funny memory I have. Another memory I have was of Dennis. One council meeting, he joined online in what might have been a spare bedroom of his house. Dennis sat in front of the screen professionally dressed and perfectly square with the camera. However, there was a bed behind him that I could see in the background. On the bed was some sort of a doll, like a baby doll. During that whole council meeting, I was more focused on watching that doll to make sure it didn't sit up on its own like in a bad horror movie. Thankfully, at the next meeting, Dennis either moved the doll or sat in another room because I never saw that doll again. But I always chuckle when I think of that specific meeting because I was afraid that doll would come to life and our worst fears would unfold and Dennis would be no more due to that doll.
The Chucky doll? Chucky.
My favorite memory I have is riding with one of our snowplow drivers named Bummy. I have no clue what his real name is, but everyone calls him Bummy. We had a huge snowstorm one night and Lonnie said I could do a ride along in one of our snowplows so I could see our county highway department, what they go through to clear our roads. We were on 900 South trying to plow when we noticed a car stuck in the snow blocking the road. We got out of the snowplow to see who this invincible civilian driver was and hoped they had good reasons to be out. This driver just happened to be Jim Langham. He was out trying to take pictures and got stuck in the snow. Lonnie, Bummy, and I pushed Jim out of the snowdrift and told him to find a plowed road to drive down to take his pictures. A few hours later, Bummy got the snowplow stuck in the side ditch and I was hanging on for dear life trying to not fall out of the truck. Poor Bummy. I'm sure he was stressed enough having me as his rider, and now he was even more embarrassed for getting the snowplow stuck. But I had the time of my life and had a great, memorable day. Over the 4 years, we worked hard and accomplished so much. As I look back now, we did a whole lot. We now have job descriptions, structured wage levels, a PTO policy, sexual harassment training, an HR director, more reports available to us, such as the 1782 notice and Form 4B. We have increased efficiency in our council meetings that used to last 4.5 hours to now they're around 2 hours on average. We have a good working relationship with our current commissioners, and we no longer are on defense as in a prior administration. However, there's still work to be done. In some areas of our government, we're leading the way, but in other areas, we are behind the times. We need a capital improvement plan. We need a system of tracking our assets. We need to reevaluate the wage bands. We need to establish a clear timeline for the budget process to make it more efficient. I want to leave a few suggestions for the future council. Something to consider: changing the policy that the council president can only vote in ties. I found this policy to be frustrating when I was council president. For an entire year, my district did not get a vote on any matters that came before the council. They didn't get a vote on raising taxes, passing a budget, authorizing tax abatements, or any other responsibility assigned to the council. Each person on this board is elected, and their votes should all be recorded and counted and available for the public to see. While at conferences, I found that our county was in the minority of counties that do not allow their president to vote. Many counties have a roll call vote, so each person has to record how each person has voted and recorded. Another suggestion is to encourage all council members to take advantage of the trainings available throughout the year from the Association of Indiana Counties. There is a wealth of information available to help you be better informed and more knowledgeable in how to do your job and how other counties are doing theirs. Adams County is not an island. There are 91 other counties out there doing the exact same job as us. AIC conferences offer a great way to network with other council members and commissioners and have a wide range of resources available to us. Through these conferences, I learned that we were to have the 1782 notice and Form 4B given to us to help with our budgeting process. At one conference, Jackie at AIC showed us the form that she created to help her council make more informed decisions during additional appropriation requests throughout the year. After asking questions, it sounded like we were the only county that didn't have this form. So I created that forecast form and used it every month to see how each tax-driven fund was being spent and the percentage of collections received with a projected ending balance. I strongly recommend going to training so you are better informed to lead our county instead of becoming complacent and stagnant. In the end, I want to thank a few people specifically. Tony, thank you for 5 years of answering my questions and responding to every single text and email I've ever sent you. I hope you give more attention to Oaks so he doesn't feel so deprived. Shannon, you've been a great asset to our county, a lifesaver actually, and I respect you. We've hurled so much at you, and you know how to stand your ground. Good job. Brad, you are very respected in my district, and people really like you. You have a thankless job at times, and I appreciate all your hard work and your positive attitude. You and Paul make a great team. I wanted to say I thought Steve would be here today. Steve Bailey, you were on the council when I started, and I appreciated your knowledge, perspectives, and demeanor. You will be a great commissioner, and I wish you the best in your term. Corey?
I'm just gonna get everybody about another reason to join, because then I'm just so light off.
Corey, we've been through a lot the last 4 years together, through thick and thin. We've put in a lot of hours in the salary structure, establishing the wage levels, classification changes, and budget numbers. We've been through a whole lot. You have my utmost respect and keep standing up for what you believe is right. It's been a pleasure serving on this board for the past 4 years. I wish you all the best and keep moving our county forward.
Keith, any comments?
The only thing I'll say is that I appreciated John Schultz asking me to take over his seat and serve for him, which was an honor to do.
Any other matters to be brought before us? Thank you for your comment. Appreciated that. And I appreciate both your services to the community and county. No further business. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Can I make that motion to adjourn?
Sure.
Fred, do you want to second it?
I'm Keith. But
Oh,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
But you guys do look a lot.
Yeah.
So that's what we're here.
You bet. Keith, second. All those in favor? Merry Christmas to you all.